Hello everyone, welcome to Learn Data Structures and Algorithm in Python course. So today in this lecture, we'll be looking at classes and objects in Python. So let's start. First, let's discuss about what are the predefined data types and what are the user-defined data types. Previously, we have discussed about integer, float, string, list, tuples, dictionary, set. So all these data types are already present in Python. That's why these are called predefined data type. Now, assume you are working in a project, actually a 3D model project. There, you need some kind of data type that represents a 3D vector. So, so 3D vector that contains some x, y, z coordinates and some operations like dot product, cross product, or calculate the magnitude. So you need a data type that contains these things, these many things. Now, how it is possible to achieve through predefined data types in Python? It is not possible, right? That's why user-defined data types are introduced. Let's take another example. You are building a library management system, and there you need some kind of data type that represents a book, and that book has title, then author, then year. So those many things. Then how could you achieve this using predefined data types? That is not possible, right? Or suppose you are building an app where you want to store the user information like name, then phone number, email address that you want to store in database. Then this kind of data types Python doesn't support, right? So how could you do that? That's why class is introduced. Class actually deals with real world problems and it helps to create user defined data types. Now let's look at what is class and what is object. So class is a template or blueprint for real world entities. Means what does it mean? Suppose you need to create a bank account. So you visited a bank, then bank will give you a blank form like this. And there have some empty fields that you have to fill and then some photo you have to attach. Now, to create a bank account, first what you have to do? You have to take a form and you have to fill the information one by one and you have to attach a photo, right? Then this will open your bank account, right? So this is a blank form that doesn't have any sense. So this is only a piece of paper. But when you fill the information, then it will make sense. Similarly, class and objects work like this. Assume this is a class and this is an object. So class is only a template, but object has information. This is a real thing that has some value, right? Now, almost everything in Python is an object with its properties and method. Let's try to understand. Let's create a variable called num equals to 20, right? So this is predefined data type and we know this num will be integer. So now let's print the type of num, type of num, and try to run this. Now you can see this integer actually a type of class. That's why we call everything in Python is an object that is created from a class. Now, what is an object? An object is an instance of a class. So class is basically a template. When you create an instance of it, that is called object, right? Now let's create a class in our VS Code. So to create a class, so syntax is first you have to write this class keyword. Then the name of the class, what you want to name this. The rule is the name of the class should be start with capital letter. So let's name it my class, right? And then put colon. Now add some values to it. Let's say name equals to John, right? Now we have successfully created a class. So this is a template. Now to create an instance of it, first what you have to do? First you have to write the class, my class. Then you have to call it, like you have to invoke it. So this means you are creating an instance of a class. And we know when we create an instance of a class, that is basically called object, right? Now to store the reference of this object, let's create a variable called person and assign this instance to it. Now this person is called objects. That's how we create an object from class. Now try to print those both. First print this class, my class, then just print this person object, right? Now try to run this. Now you can see the first one, my class, is a type of class, and the second one is an object. Now the thing here is that for class, Python doesn't allocate any memory to this. But for object, for this person object, Python allocated some memory, and this is the address of the memory. But for class, Python doesn't allocate any memory. Let's create another class like person2 from this. Just initialize this and also print this person2. Sorry, print person2. Now try to run this. When you run this, so you can see there are different memory allocation for each and every object. But for class, there is no memory allocation, right? That's how we create class and objects. Now, so this is a syntax how we create a class, and this is some example how we create some object from this class. So this is a template, right? From one class, you can create multiple objects. You can create multiple objects and one you can create multiple objects. What you have to do, you have to pass the argument, means you have to fill the form. Then there will be different bank account opened for different person. So this is how class and object works. Now let's talk about constructor. What are constructor? Constructor in Python is a special method means a function that is called when an object is created. But here, when we create object from this class, we are not calling any function, right? When we create object from the class, Python by default call a method. That method, that special method is called constructor. Let's see the example. So this is a class person class, right? And we have defined some constructor here. And when we create an object from this class, so this method by default, it will be called. So this is called constructor. Every time you create a new object, this constructor will be called. Now, in Python, the init method is called the constructor. So underscore underscore init. So this is basically name of a function. So this function, this special kind of function is called constructor function. In Python, every class has a constructor. It is not required to define explicitly. We are not defining, right? Here we are not defining the constructor explicitly. Now let's create a class using constructor. Just remove this out and clear this. Let's create a person class. So first you have to write this keyword class, then person. Then you have to define a constructor. Def. Then the name of the constructor should be underscore underscore init. Then underscore underscore. So this is a name, nothing fancy. Now you have to pass a special parameter called self. You'll be exploring this later. Then what you want to set as an attribute to this class? Self. Suppose you want to set name. So we'll create like this dot name and assign the value to it. What will be the value? Like let's imagine John, right? Now the class is created. Now to create an object from this class, what you have to do? First you have to create an object person, then you have to initialize this class person, then invoke this. Now the object is created. Now let's print it. Print person. Now let's run. Okay, now you can see this object is created. Now to access the attribute name from this object, what you have to do? You have to use this dot operator. Then whatever attribute you want to access, you will call this name. So person dot name. This is the syntax. Now if you run this, so it is printing John. That's how we set attributes to a object. Now, what is this self? So this self is a special kind of parameter that actually refers the instance of this class, means the object. What does it mean? Let's try to understand. Assume this is a class. This is a class. Now, when you create an object from this class, first constructor will be called, and what constructor will do? Constructor create an instance from this class. So this is an instance from the class. Now it will allocate some memory for this, like 0 1 x 8 9 dot dot dot. This is a memory address. Now this instance is stored in a memory space. Then there are some attributes like name, right? Now currently it is empty. Then what you have to do? You have to store this John to this attribute. How could you do that? To do this, somehow we need the reference of this object where you want to store. You can't store here and there. You have to store particularly here, right? That's why we need the reference of this object. This reference of this object basically called self. So this self means this object. This object itself means instance of this class itself. Now to set John to the attribute of this object, what you have to do? You have to just write self dot John. Sorry, self dot name, right? Then you will assign the value John. This is how it works in Python. Means whenever you want to set the attribute, first you have to take the reference of this instance, then the name of the attribute you want to set, then what you want to set. So this is the syntax, and this self actually refers to this object only. So here when we just create the object, first this constructor will be called, then this self will be referred to this new object, and here inside this new object there will be some property called name, and inside this name we'll set this John. And to take the reference of this object, we use this special kind of parameter called self. So now hope you understand what is this self basically is. So every time when you set a attribute inside the class, you have to call self, then dot, then the name of the attribute. Now there are two kind of constructor. One is default constructor, one is parameterized constructor. For default constructor, when we create object, we don't pass any value to it. But for parameterized constructor, when you create the object, we have to pass the value, right? So this is the difference. Now let's take a look. So this is a class with default constructor. Now let's create same class with parameterized constructor. So class person and then def, then underscore underscore init, then underscore underscore, then self. So until this is same. Now, so here what we have done, we have set the name as John. What will happen whenever you create different objects? So the name will not be changed. So name by default will be set John. But if we want to set the name different for different objects, then we have to use parameterized constructor. Means while creating the object, we must have to pass this value. So for this, let's take name from user, then set self dot name equals to name from user, right? Whatever user will pass, it will set to this name attribute. Now if we create a new object, person1 equals to person, then we must have to pass the name. So name will be John. Now let's create another object, person2, and pass the name as Bob, right? Similarly, create another object. So here person3, then the name should be Rick. Let's print first person1 dot name, then similarly person2 dot name and person3 dot name. Now if we try to run this, so you can see for the first object person1, the name is set to John, and for person2 the name is set to Bob, and for person3 name is set to Rick. For default constructor, the name will be same for every object. Even if you create person1, person2, person3 from this default constructor, the name will be same. But for parameterized constructor, when we create instance of this class, whatever we pass the value, that will be set to that particular attributes. Now hope you understand what is this parameterized constructor and what is default constructor. Okay. Now let's talk about attributes and methods in Python. First, attributes. Attributes are the variables that belongs to a class. Means when we define a variable inside a class, that is called attribute. And outside of the class, we can't access this variable. Like take an example. So this is a class and there is an attribute called name. So we only can access this name when we create the object from this class. But if we just print name outside, so it is throwing us the error. So we can't access the name from out of the class. Now, there are two kind of attributes, class attributes and instance attributes. Let's try to understand. Let's take an example. Control A, close this. Let's create a class called student. I want for each of the student, when I create different objects from the student class, each and every student, the name of the school should be same. So just put school name and put some random name, a basic school, right? Then we have to define the constructor. So def, then underscore underscore in it, then underscore underscore, then self. After that, name of the student, name of student, then roll number, right? Then we'll be assigning this value to some attributes. Let's self dot name equals to name of the student, then self dot roll number equals to roll number, right? Okay, there is a syntax error. You have to assign equals to. It's my mistake. Now create two or three objects. Student1 equals to student1 has name as John, then roll number is, let's say, 45, then other two, student2 has name as Bob and roll number is 46, and then 3 Robert, roll number is 47, right? Now, if we want to print student, if we want to print student 1 dot school name and just print it for all, student 1, then student 2 and student 3. Let's try to run this. So you can see, so if you print this school name for each and every student, so the name of the school is same, but in spite of school name, in spite of school name, if we just write name of the student then try to run this, then you can see the name is different for each object. And similarly, if we just print roll number and try to run this, now you can see roll number is also different. So this variable is common for everyone, but this name and roll number is different for each of the every object, right? This school name is called class attribute, and this name and roll number called instance attribute. Means when you create a new instance, this attribute will be different, but this class attribute will be same for every object that is created from this class. Now, methods. In Python, methods are the function that are associated with objects and are defined within a class. Means we define the function whenever we define the class, then we only can invoke the function when the object is created. Let's try to understand. Let's take same example. Let's create a class, person class, then create a constructor def underscore underscore init underscore underscore, then self, then take attribute name, then just set self dot name equals to name, right? Now I need a method. Method is nothing but a function that is defined inside a class. Now let's create this def introduce and then self, then it will take nothing, then just print and some, and then just print hello, I am, then self dot name to access. So this method can access any attribute inside this class. For this you have to use this self dot. Now let's create an object from this, person one equals to person, then name should be Jack. Now to invoke this method, what we have to do, first we have to write the object like the person, then we have to apply dot, then the name of the method introduce, then we have to invoke this, like we have to add the parenthesis. For attributes we don't need this parenthesis because we don't have to invoke, but for method we have to invoke. Okay, let's see this. Let's print this one, print this. And how do we print this attribute? Print, sorry, version 1 dot name. So for attribute we don't have to add the parenthesis, but for method we have to invoke this. Now let's clear this out and try to run this. Now you can see hello, I'm Jack, then this is actually returning nothing, so that's why it is printing none. I think now you have understood what is this attribute and methods are. Now let's take an example of real world problem and we'll see how to implement it in a class. Okay, first let's clear this out and clear this also. Okay, Let's take an example of the same bank account. So to create a bank account, so bank need name, ID, your phone number, and amount what you want to set as a balance. Let's create the class, and the name of the class is bank account, and then take a class attribute, mm, bank name. The name of the bank will be ABC Bank. Then some constructor def and unit. Then first parameter will be self, then bank holder's name, then account holder's name, then age, then Aadhaar ID, then mobile, then balance that you want to deposit for the first time. Then set these attributes. So first set this name, self dot name equals to name. Similarly, self dot age equals to age. Then self dot Aadhaar square ID equals to Aadhaar ID. Then self dot mobile equals to self dot mobile number equals to mobile. Then self dot balance equals to balance. Okay, so now we have implemented the constructor. Now next, now let's create a method to show your current balance. So first def show balance, then self, then next it will print some, then self dot name your current balance is, then self dot balance, right? Now let's create another method called deposit cash. Def is it cash, and it will take self, then the amount you want to deposit, then next what, okay, when we deposit cash, so what we'll do, so we'll be adding this amount to our current balance. So self dot balance plus equals to amount, right? Now let's display some message, print like first the name, self dot name, then comma, then we'll have deposited, then the amount like um, amount this, and then your current account balance is self dot balance, right? So this is a function for deposit cash. Now if we need a function to withdraw cash, def draw cash, next self, and amount what we want to withdraw. Then here is a catch. First we have to just check if your current balance is greater than your requested amount or not. If it is greater than your requested amount, then we can allow to withdraw, otherwise we'll just show a message. So let's first check if your self dot current balance is less than amount, requested amount, then what we'll do, we'll just print f, then self dot name comma font, font and your balance is self dot balance, and otherwise will be just modify this self dot balance minus equals to amount, then we'll show some message print, and in message first will be showing the name self dot name you have drawn, then the amount, and next or current balance is self dot balance, right? Let's put it inside else block, tab. Okay, now we have created this class. Let's create an object from this. First open a account account one equals to what we have to call, this. Okay, my mistake. That will be bank account, then we'll be passing first name, the name of the account holder. So name of the account holder would be Bob, then age would be 34, then Aadhaar ID, mobile number, and balance. Aadhaar ID would be like 9999 hyphen 9999 hyphen 8888. Okay, mobile number would be like 9999 999999. Okay, then amount, the amount you want to deposit for the first time, let's assume 10,000. Okay, first call show balance. For that we'll be calling account one dot show balance, and you have to just invoke this. Now just run this. So your current balance is 10,000, right? Then just comment it out, then call, then deposit some amount, account one dot deposit cash. Let's deposit 20,000. Okay, let's run this. Now Bob, you have successfully deposited 20,000. Your current account balance is 30,000, right? Now current account balance is 30,000. Now withdraw some cash. Now account one dot withdraw cash. So cash, let's try to withdraw 50,000. Okay, let's try to run this. So first you have deposited 10,000. So current account balance is 30,000, but you want to withdraw 50,000. So that's why it is showing this message insufficient fund, and you're showing the current balance. Suppose assume 10,000, right? Now if you run this, let's clear this, and if you run this, so now you can see you can withdraw 10,000 and your current account balance is 20,000. So this is some real world example how we can create our own data types, how we can create attributes and method using this class, and how we can solve real world problems. So in this lecture we have learned about what is class, what is object in Python, and then we have seen how to create a class, and from class how to create an object. Then we have taught about constructor, why do we need a constructor, and we have seen two kind of constructor, default constructor and parameterized constructor. Then after that we have seen what is attributes and methods. Then we have solved a real world problem. So that's it for today. See you in the next lecture.